What's up, guys? Matt here with MTG Ownage, coming at you with a kind of bad green screen. I'm going to talk about Doublestrike Lifelink. Now, this is a combination of words that just flat out wins a lot of games. All right, it's a huge swing. So I started doing a little research one day and just basically did a little advanced search and just found out all the cards in Magic that have the words Doublestrike and Lifelink on them. It can kind of produce that for you or make that available for you. And the list is right here. So if you don't want to listen to me blab or whatever, just take a look at the list. All right. So I'll explain the list and we'll talk about some of the cards, and that's going to be the video. And all right. So hard. What I mean by hard is if you play these cards, you flat out get Doublestrike Lifelink on the board in some way. There's only 4 of these cards in the entire Magic the Gathering game. In the entire database, all these sets, all these who knows how many thousands of cards, there's only 4 that will absolutely, without a doubt, give you Doublestrike and Lifelink on your board state, which kind of blew my mind. I figured there would be a lot more. Chroma's Will. It's one of Bruce Tarl is another one. Drogskull Reaver is one, and True Conviction. Those are the only 4 cards in the entire game that are guaranteed to give you Doublestrike Lifelink if you play them. Alright, now some of them might be stronger than others or situational or whatever, but obviously these cards are really good. Bruce Tarl sees a lot of play. I think that's the only one that makes it to CEDH level, but the other ones are really, really good too. Alright, and let's talk about soft real quick here. So for soft, basically what this means is these can give you Doublestrike and Lifelink on your board state, but only if you meet the right situation. So you're going to need other cards and other situations going on to be able to do that. And I've got a couple other things here. I've got Lucky. Oh, my green screen's all messed up. Whatever, I'll put this over here. Just have my camera off. Whatever. You're just gonna have to see my chopped head. All right. I'm not redoing this. It is what it is. Look, okay, we got Karen Wonder, Eater of Virtue, Glorious Enforcer, Cathril, Majestic Myarch, Audric, however you say it, Raimi, First Fallen, and Thunder's Orator. Not a whole lot, even still. Not a whole lot of cards in this pool of even soft ones. These are the only ones. We got a lucky one. This one's new. This is from, I don't know, whatever that new unglued set is. If you roll just right, you can end up with Doublestrike Lifelink on this Celebra 8000. God, that's hard to say. It's also a robot, a clown robot. That's its types. So, funny card. And there's one card that allows you to find things with Doublestrike Lifelink specifically, and that's Selective Adaptation. So, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video, well, I don't know why I wanted to make this video. This was just my own internal research. I guess I just wanted to make some permanency of this whole event. But basically, I've noticed in my time of playing a lot of Commander and Magic in general is if you get Doublestrike Lifelink on the board, your odds of winning tend to go way up. Sure, you still got to play correctly, and hopefully your opponent doesn't have removal and all that. I'm taking this Band-Aid off. I have a wound on my lip. Yeah, so that's it. And I just wanted to share with you guys. That's all this really is. So I'm kind of curious to hear your opinions on it too. And I guess I'm just going to do this like this. All right. Oh, God, I'm butchering this. Oh, well, I didn't really plan this. All right. Just had a text file and I just brought it up. So let's search some of these and let's just take a quick look. All right. Let's find a Chroma's Will. This is an instant from Commander Legends, and it costs 4 mana. And if you control your commander, you get both of these. I guess this would actually kind of be maybe even in the soft category, actually, because it requires a condition to get the Doublestrike Lifelink. You have to control your commander to get both. Because, it's a modal card. You get one or the other. If you have your commander, you get both. I believe there's a modal in every color for this, and this is the white one. So you can choose creatures you control get flying, vigilance, and Doublestrike until the end of turn. Pretty nice. That's if you got a big board state, it's probably going to win you the game. And the other mode is creatures you control get lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until the end of turn. So if you have your commander and you get both of these and you do a full swing, it's kind of nuts. But yeah, I think this actually falls into the soft category. So that's kind of interesting. There's now only 3 cards in the hard category that just definitely give you Doublestrike Lifelink. Now, I will say with the Chroma's Will, this is an easy condition to make in general. Generally in Commander, you build your deck around getting your commander out. So it's a pretty easy condition to make, or to meet, I'd say. So this one is nearly hard, I would say. But yeah, it's still technically falls in the soft category. I think I'm slurring partially because I can't hear myself with these noise canceling headphones on. If that makes any sense. All right, so that's a Chrome as well. Let's just go down the list. Let's talk about some of these. And that's it. Bruce Tarl. This card is insane. I still cannot believe that this card hasn't like shot through the roof in value. Like the first time I saw this played, and how much it just swung the game, and how, just every time. You know what I'm talking about, Ryan. You're a big proponent of the magical mustache. I just call this guy the magical mustache at this point. Anytime I see him come out, I'm like, oh god, not the magical mustache. Don't let him do it. Don't let him take everything I worked for. This card is so good. All right, let's read it. This might fall on the soft a bit too because, well, let's read it. All right, when he enters the battlefield or attacks, target creature you control gains double strike and lifelink until the end of turn. I guess it's somewhat soft. No, this isn't soft. It's an ETB effect. How soft is that? That's not very soft. That's very repeatable. And it's an attack trigger. Also, very repeatable. And if you're playing something like Ishin, the double attack triggers, you can put this on 2 things. So he's like insane in that deck. But yeah, if you get this guy out, you're basically guaranteed to get double strike lifelink. So I think he still fits in the hard. Now, if we're being super technical, it might be soft because you got to meet the condition of him entering the battlefield. I don't know if that really works. Or him attacking. But those are like so common and like definitely going to happen. At least the ETB definitely going to happen, that you could probably call this hard. So yeah, I think he still fits in the hard category. But I don't know what else there is to say about this card other than if you don't have one and you play these colors, get this card ASAP before it goes through the roof, because it's going to. As you can see, it's one of the only 3 cards in the entire game that does this. And I can tell you from my personal experience from playing Commander over the last quite a few years that this card just wins games, and this card just saves lives. Like when you're low on health and you think, I just need a little bit of life gain, just anything that gains me life, and you top deck a Bruce Tarl, you're just like, oh, I have a chance. And you gain a bunch of life, you swing really hard. Nutty card. I'm kind of surprised it's not more spoken about, but just remember the magical mustache, all right? Just remember. Never forget how dangerous this card is, and get it if you don't own it. Your opponents will rage at the magical mustache. All right, so I think we've spoken enough about him. Let's talk about Drogskull Reeve. Is this card that has it right on the text box. Flying, double strike, lifelink. Whenever you gain life, draw a card. Now, you know how nuts that is. This thing's going to draw you a bunch of cards, gain you a bunch of life. It's hard to deal with. Its only real drawback is its huge casting cost, so you're going to have to ramp up there. But it is a spirit, so people with spirit EDH decks out there, you probably want to check this out. Or, it's one of the few cards with these words on it. This is, I'm not really sure how much I can go on about this card. It's just, it's a very vanilla thing. So it does what it does. If you're in a life gain deck, it's going to be awesome, obviously, too. So I think we move on here, but it's just very, very interesting. Just way stronger than it seems. Now, for 7 mana, there's a lot of other bombs you can play. So I think this kind of goes towards a more casual level, unless you're somehow reanimating it or somehow getting it out turn 1, 2, 3 super early. Then it might be better, but it doesn't have any really natural protection, and things this high in the CMC are just removal bait, basically. Bruce Tarl might be removal bait too, but he's someone you can put in your command zone, so that makes a big difference. And he's a partner. I'm sorry, I've got to go back. I didn't even talk about this, and it's probably, if he wasn't already OP enough in the 99, he can be one of your partner commanders, and he can pair with so many things that would love to have double strike lifelink around. So insane card, just bonkers card, honestly. It's not as bonkers as, like, I don't know, Winota or something, but this guy should probably be in Winota. All right, let's move on to True Conviction. You probably know what True Conviction is. It's a very famous card. This one gives, well, it's an enchantment for 6 mana in the mono white category, basically. Creatures you control have double strike lifelink. This gives it to your entire board. I play this card in my Knights deck. There's my Knight commanders. Some of you have seen it. Probably 2 of you that watch my channel that I actually know what I'm talking about. But pretty much anytime this hits the board with my Knights deck, I tend to run away with the game. Who would have thought, right? Double strike lifelink, you gain a ton, your opponents go down a ton. It's just like, normally lifelink is so good because it like not only does, say this is your opponent, not only does your opponent's health go down, but yours goes up and it creates a double swing. Now with Double Strike and Lifelink, it's just like even more. And it's just like, how does this person ever come back? They just crawl their way back slowly, and you're like, I don't think so. And you just blow people out of the water with these kind of cards, especially True Conviction. High CMC, sure. Are you going to get to 6 mana in a commander are you going to get to 6 mana in a commander game? Absolutely. Well, casual, I'd say absolutely. You know, and I could even say in competitive, you're probably going to too, because you have access to really fast mana. You have access to the Moxes and the Lotus Petals, and you're probably playing who knows what else. But it's not hard to get 6 mana on like turn 1. Well, maybe turn 1's a little difficult sometimes, but it's not hard to get 6 mana on turn 2 or 3 if you're playing the competitive cards. And if you're not playing competitive cards, you can still pretty easily get to 6 mana. But you know, if this is one of your top end cards and you're playing like really efficient smaller CMCs, you should be able to scale up to this quite nicely. I don't know. There's a lot of theory and a lot of angles you could talk about there, but still, three cards in the entire Magic game that just absolutely give you Double Strike Lifelink. And well, there's a little bit of argument here for how I've defined it, because like True Conviction doesn't necessarily give you Double Strike Lifelink, right? Because if you don't have any creatures, it does nothing. So there's an argument that this could go into the soft category. And the same with Bruce Tarl, where you gotta actually be able to swing, but that's assumed with Double Strike Lifelink, you know. So there's a few assumptions here. It's assuming you're gonna get an attack in with the Double Strike Lifelink, because, you know, naturally those words do nothing anyway if you don't get an attack in. But I guess they're great for defense too. No one's gonna want to swing into you when you have these keywords floating around. So I stand by it. Maybe it's not a perfect explanation, but I stand by it that these are the only 3 cards in the game that absolutely are going to win the game when they hit the table, basically. All right, let's talk about the soft ones. Are any of these any good? Well, I think Akroma's Will is another card that's just bonkers. It's absolutely very, very good, no doubt. Not only can it save your entire board, let's go ahead and go to it while I'm talking about it. It makes a lot of sense to do, even though we already have. But, you know, you got to save up a lot of mana. But this indestructible protection from all colors and lifelink, like if someone does a big attack at you, you can pop this mode and block everything, and you don't lose anything, and you gain a bunch of life. And, you know, if you're on the swing and you want to try to get both modes, just have your commander out. It shouldn't be a big deal. This card is nearly in the hard category. You know, it's very, very close to being hard. So I think this is one of the best ones in the soft. But absolutely, these 4 are without a doubt worth playing a lot of times. And Drogskol Reaver, you know, there's a pretty big argument for its CMC being too high. So if your deck has a lot of ramp, it's definitely playable. If it doesn't have a lot of ramp and you're going to be operating on low mana, probably not. Same with True Conviction. But Bruce Tarl's only a 4. He's playable all the time. All right, let's move on. These are in no specific order, so I'm just going to go down the list. Cairn Wanderer. You're probably wondering what the heck is this card. I didn't know what this card was. I literally didn't even know this card existed till I started doing this research. And look how goofy this picture is. This is one of the goofiest pictures in the game. It's a shapeshifter, first of all, and it looks like an alien. It looks like a sectoid. Alright, or gray, or whatever you call them. So it's a 4/4 changeling for 5 mana. Not great value, but that's great value if you get some of these keywords, and it goes off of things in your graveyard. So it basically copies some of these keywords from things in your graveyard. So it's soft because you have to have something with Double Strike in your graveyard, and you have to have something with Lifelink in your graveyard. All right, fair enough, but also all these other keywords. So if you've got a graveyard deck where you're dumping keywords into your graveyard, this is a great card. Also, if you're playing the First Sliver, this is probably a really great card too, because it's going to cascade with the First Sliver. I guess I should pull. Nah, you know what First Sliver is, or go look it up. Basically, it cascades with slivers, and since this is a changeling, it's a sliver too. That's just a side point because I play this in my First Sliver deck. I don't remember if I've actually put it in there yet, but I intend to if I haven't yet. Yeah, so I don't know if there's a whole lot to say about this one, but it's definitely a card you should be aware of and maybe consider playing for a graveyard deck if you've got a lot of those keywords. It's definitely going to create a bit of a swing. Now, it's only on itself. It's not like it's going to give this to the rest of your board or anything. But still, if you get those 2 keywords, it's still going to swing for 8 and gain you 8 every time, and that's a pretty big deal. And if you have equipment and stuff, it's going to be even better. All right, let's move on. There's not a whole lot really to say about Cairn Wanderer. Very interesting card though. It being a changeling is probably It's probably the only changeling that has these keywords. All right. Eater of Virtue. I've been on the fence about this card. I really want to try this card out more. I can't decide if it's good or not. I really just can't. All right. It's a 1 mana legendary equipment that equips for 1. And it gives the creature +2/+0. That's basically all it does to start. But when the creature dies, you exile that creature. And now this equipment starts giving everything those keywords, any of these special keywords from things that's exiled. So you do have to exile something with Doublestrike. You have to have something die that had Doublestrike. You have to have something die that had Lifelink. But if you're playing Drogskull Reaver, for example, and you put Eater of Virtue on it, and then they kill the Drogskull, well, now you got a flying Lifelink Doublestrike equipment. You know, there's stuff like that. But the more realistic case is that this isn't going to work. People are going to obviously see your plan, and this is going to just work like one of those cheap common, what are they called? One of the axes. I can't even remember the name of it. That basically does the exact same thing as this, except none of this exile keyword mechanic. You probably know what I'm talking about. No one plays those really. Bloodsteel Axe or something, one of those. So I really like this card though. Okay, so I think one of the most interesting things you can do with this card is if you're running a deck that tends to steal your opponent's creatures, even if just for a turn, even if it's just like one of those gain control of an opponent's creature till the end of the turn, and you put Eater of Virtue on it, and then you sack their creature before you give it back to them, and instead it gets exiled under Eater of Virtue, and now you got those keywords. Very convoluted little combo, I know, but I considered playing this in Corvold and then stealing people's creatures, sacking them to Corvold and getting their keywords with Eater of Virtue, and then, you know, hopefully trample, because Corvold needs trample very badly. So the point is, there's uses for this, and you could definitely potentially get the Doublestrike Lifelink, but that's not even the only point. There's so many other little things you can get, but it's not a very playable card because it's going to be a little weird. But the thing about this is, it's great on your commander in general, because, you know, you go to exile your commander, and you're going to be like, no, I don't want him exiled, just put him in the command zone. So this fits great on just like dummy throwaway creatures that you're either going to sack or lose in combat, or if you're stealing your opponent's creatures, like I said. So there's definitely some utility here, and being that it's just 1 mana and 1 to equip, that is super nice. I think this is going to see some play in the future and going to suddenly pop up and probably go way up in value at some point once some kind of shenanigans happen with it, or maybe someone will see it on, you know how it goes. Basically, this card will get played at some point on, I don't know, the command zone or something, or one of these big EDH channels, and suddenly it's going to go from a 10-cent card to like who knows what. So it's just the way it goes. But this is definitely a card to be aware of that could also swing the game. I don't know. I'm on the fence about this still. I'm not trying to promote it because I don't. What do I even say? It's just still a very situational card in general, but if nothing else, you're going to at least be buffing your commander and potentially getting keywords for your commander with it. And it being so cheap, so dang cheap, is what I think the biggest thing about this. All right, let's look at the next one, Glorious Enforcer. All right, we got a 7 CMC Angel. All right, kind of reminds me of the Drogskull already being 7 CMC. This is only an uncommon though, so this should be a really easy pickup. It's flying, lifelink, 5/5. Alright, that's cool enough. And it has some other text, a little trigger here. At the beginning of each combat, if you have more life than an opponent, Glorious Enforcer gains Doublestrike until the end of the turn. Now, this obviously belongs in some sort of life gain deck, and this is going to gain you a ton of life. I don't know. Depends on your deck, but this is a decent top-end budget card, I think. I don't know if I'd ever play it, but it's definitely something to be aware of and think about. It could potentially be very strong. Most people would probably just play something else like Hellish Norn for 7 because it has just such a big global impact. But this is still very cool. I do like this. I do like this card overall. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it's cool, and it's worth noting that it has Doublestrike Lifelink potential right on it. All right, let's look at Cathrall. This is an interesting one. This is kind of one of those old commanders. Getting old, not super old. Now, this is a wall of text, man. Okay, when Cathrall enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on it if you have a creature with flying. Repeat this process for first strike, double strike, death touch, hexproof, indestructible, menace, reach, trample, vigilance, and then +1/+1 counter for each counter put on this way. So you need a bunch of creatures with keywords, and that's what this commander was designed around. It's actually one of those commander decks. Was it Commander 2020 or 2019? I don't know. I forget. the one that had all the broken free spells that are now worth $1 million that everybody complains about. That it was that era. That's where this came from. So this is definitely soft because well, you gotta have all these other creatures in play for it to even work. You could argue that like True Conviction is the same way. You gotta have creatures in play. Well, this one you gotta have creatures in play, but in addition to that, they also have to have the special keywords. But if you've got something with Doublestrike, pretty easy to get in white. There's a lot of little white cheap Doublestrike guys. And you've got something with Lifelink, which is pretty easy to get in white, black, and green. You can very easily summon this guy as like at least a 5/5 Doublestrike Lifelink. And if you can manage to get Trample, Indestructible, and Hexproof and all this other awesome stuff on them at the same time, it's really going to be a problem for your opponents. And if they don't find a very quick way to handle it, you're probably going to win. So definitely another one to be aware of if you're in these colors. All right, let's move on. Majestic Myark, however you say this. All right, so 5 mana, star, power and toughness equal to twice the number of creatures you control. So he's at least a 2/2 for himself. And at the beginning of each combat, he gains flying if you control a creature with flying. Same is true for a ton of other keywords. So you have to have other creatures with these keywords. Kind of similar to a couple others we've seen. But once again, in the soft category, because you got to have other stuff to make it come online. All right, let's check out this guy. Odric, I don't know. But same thing, you have to have other creatures with these abilities, but he's just pretty good on its own. It's not like you need the Doublestrike Lifelink, and it's kind of the same with these other ones. You know, they're good with other keywords too, but they just have the potential of what we're talking about here. And what's so great about this card is, well, it gives it to everything on your entire board. At the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until the end of turn. If you control a creature with first strike, and the same is true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, vigilance. I love playing this card. I think it's very strong. It's definitely won me quite a few games. It's just when you got that wide board state, you know, with a lot of semi-decent creatures here and there, suddenly you summon this guy, and just everything on your board is suddenly OP with all these keywords. And that is especially true with the Doublestrike Lifelink. If you're getting those, that's where he really gets nuts. So definitely one to be aware of, especially for those go wide decks. All right, let's move on. Rayami, First of the Fallen. This picture disturbs me. All right, she's 4 CMC of these Sultai colors, 5/4. All right, if a non-token creature would die, exile with a blood counter instead, as long as let me read this again. If a non-token creature would die, that's all creatures, not just yours, your opponents too. Exile with a blood counter, as long as an exiled card with blood counter on it has, well, it's all the keywords. If you get something exiled with that blood counter with a keyword, she gets it as well. All right, it's a wall of text to basically say that. But it says flying, first strike, double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, protection, reach, trample, vigilance. So plan here is pretty obvious. You gotta have stuff die with keywords, so you could have them in your deck, or you could mess with your opponent's stuff. Definitely a soft one here. It's gonna be pretty hard to get Doublestrike, lifelink. You're kind of gonna have to get lucky, I think, for this one. There's not a whole lot of Doublestrike in these 3 colors, so you're probably gonna have to nab that from your opponent somehow. To get those special abilities. But even without that, she's still obviously very, very strong creature, especially for 4 mana. But if none of this stuff happens, she's kind of weak, at least in this current heavy ramp of, I don't know, words not coming to me. The power of cards, power creep. Power creep makes Rami weak, basically. It's not that she's bad, it's just that other cards are better. All right, Thunderous Orator. Kind of the same deal as some of these previous ones. It's just a 2/2 Vigilance for 2. Pretty easy to fit into a deck. Cheap to summon. At least you get a 2/2 Vigilance Wizard, if nothing else. But when it attacks, it gains keywords from all other creatures you control, basically. So if you've got a creature with Doublestrike and you've got a creature with Lifelink, it's going to make this thing have that. Now, it's not super effective on a 2/2, so you're probably going to need to buff this up some other way for it to really be super effective. But with those keywords, it could gain you 4 life. But it's probably one of the cheapest ones. I think this is the lowest CMC we've seen, other than Eater of Virtue, on this potential. So say what you will about these soft ones. Akroma's Will is borderline hard. Super good card. I think the best of these is definitely the Akroma's Will, and probably the Majestic Myark. Cathrall seems really strong. Odric's obviously very strong. Karen Wonder could fit into a lot of specific decks. It being a changeling means you could definitely fit it into whatever tribal deck you want, as long as you're playing black. Let's move on to the lucky ones. So You got to get lucky to get Doublestrike Lifelink on this thing. What the heck is this? I guarantee you've never heard of it. Not guarantee, but it's a 5 mana 3/3. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, this clown robot has you roll 2 6-sided die. And for each result of 1, it gets +1/+1 till the end of turn. For other results, well, here they are. So you basically got to roll if you roll doubles, it gains Doublestrike until the end of the turn. So you guys basically got to roll 4. If you roll 2 4s, you get Doublestrike Lifelink. Pretty lucky, pretty unlikely. But even if you roll like Snake Eyes, for example, you got a 5/5 Doublestrike. But most likely you're going to get a mix of all this stuff. So you might get like a 4/4 Flying, or I don't know, 3/3 Menace Indestructible. You're just gonna get some conglomerate of these abilities. You'd have to roll 2 4s to get the Doublestrike Lifelink, but pretty interesting card. I don't think it's particularly good in my opinion, but if you're playing Clown Tribal, this is one of the few clowns. Same with robots. And just a funny card, and it is legal. I know it's from one of these unglued sets, but it doesn't have the acorn from here, so this is playable in Commander. I went ahead and snagged one once I realized that this thing was legal. I was like, I want this in my collection. It's such a funny card. Imagine just attacking with this and being like, I'll come at you with my clown robot. What abilities does it have? Let's find out. It's not very good, but it's still funny. And it's such a meme. I really want to play that card. All right, let's look at the last one, the Find Selective Adaptation. I believe this actually comes in the Cathrall deck. I think this is one of those cards. I don't know. Let's take a look. 6 mana. It allows you to look at your top 7 and choose from among them a card with flying, a card with first strike, and so on for Doublestrike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, Vigilance. Put one of them onto the battlefield, rest into your hand, the others into your hand, and the rest in your graveyard. So this is pretty cool. Sure, it's 6 mana, but if your deck is, if you're playing like Cathrall, for example, or Majestic Myark, or maybe some of these others, this is definitely a way. Now, I'm trying to understand this card fully. This is definitely a way you can just find all that stuff, and you get to put one on the board. Have to be in your top 7, so you got to get a little bit lucky here, but pretty cool card nonetheless. Now, I'm trying to understand this card fully, because now that I'm rereading it, it says, reveal the top 7 in your library. Okay, reveal the top 7. That's pretty simple. Choose from among them a card, not necessarily a creature, with flying, and a card with first strike. Now, does that mean you could find a Chroma's Will, for example? Like, it's an instant, but it is a card that says some of these keywords. And same with a lot of these others. Like Bruce Taro, for example, he doesn't have Doublestrike Lifelink, but he gives that out and he has those keywords. So could it find that? I don't know. You tell me. Let me know in the comments, because I have no clue actually now I'm thinking about it. My instinct says no. My instinct says it's got to be the text on a card, like as a vanilla ability. What do they call those? Words are not coming to me. If a card has more than one, you pick which keyword you're choosing. Okay, that's understandable. Okay, what about choose a card with flying first strike? Yeah, I don't really know. I think you can only find creatures that have the keywords like Drog Skull Reaver. I think. Could you pick a Chroma's Will with this? That's the question. That would solve the riddle. Anyway, that's all of them. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy absolutely demolishing your opponents and gaining tons of life with Doublestrike Lifelink. And I just thought it was really interesting that there's just so few of these cards in the game that have both keywords on them at the same time. And yeah, that's it for the video. See you next time. Peace out, guys.